Today we'll be looking at the education sector. For some reasons, it's been facing critical challenges. And on this program, we always talk about issues that affect Nigerians. We'll be looking at this sector and we'll look at way forward, how we can tackle it. We know a lot of people are listening and watching, but hey, can the talk really matter? And can we really do the needful? This will be our focus on the program this morning. Stay with us straight to right here on Bright Television, the home of talk and entertainment. We're back. Don't go away. Ayobami Ademo is my name. Joining me to discuss this particular issue, that is the challenges the education sector is facing right now and way forward in tackling this particular crisis. I have a lead consultant and of course an expert in education issues. I'm talking about Ikpen. Aaron Ikpen, thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you very much.
Let's kick off from the all happenings here and there. Report says today makes it 75 days that ASU started their strike. And after the whole negotiation, the federal government, they've not even concluded, they've not come to a conclusion to solve the challenges that we're facing. That right. Many people are coming out to call on those people that are given the responsibility to address issues. For example, we have the Minister of Labour and Productivity, and Dr. Chris Ngige. We also have a Minister of State for Education, Mr. Dr. Emeka Inwa Jube. And of course, he's also part of those people that have picked their form. In fact, 100 million naira was paid yesterday. How do you react to this? Let's kick off from there.
Well, the Nigerian issue, when it comes to education, like we said, education is a bedrock of every society. Development, the development of every society is anchored on education. And if we have educated people actually vying into the position of a presidency, I think that actually is commendable. But then if you look at the performance so far, we cannot give it like 100%. There's a whole lot of work to be done in the educational sector. So their declaration, picking up the forms and all of that, let's see what happens. Let's hope it's for good intention. They have the good intention, and also let's hope it results, or maybe it's as a result of the challenges in the sector they want to vie for the position. So I think let's see how
maybe it's as a result of the challenges, but they're given the chance to also address the challenges. Well, but let's look at the main focus for today. We're talking about the educational sector and the challenges this sector is facing as we speak right now. How do you explain the situation this sector is facing right now?
Well, honestly, the sector is facing lots of challenges, I would say. So many challenges. If you look at our educational system, one would have expected that by now would have, made some significant progress. But if you look at it critically, look at the same cycle, the same issues, the same problems keep popping up. I think recently the president did something concerning the teachers by upgrading their number of years of service, and then 60 years to 65 years. And then 40 years of service. But the government can actually do more than that, because you need a good system, a functioning system, and a promising system to remain in the system. It's not just keeping people in the system. So I think budget allocation is one of the biggest challenge. If you look at the infrastructures, the decadence, the decay in the infrastructure, and then the lack of political will to actually address some of those challenges, and even when the budget is allocated, you discover that how much of it is being disbursed. You look at ASU now, what they're actually looking for, is it so much that the government cannot actually address? Is it beyond, the capacity of the government? Then if you look at elections are drawing closer, let's see how much they're going to vote for the election. They don't mind voting whatever amount, to make elections hold. But if you look at education, is the most valuable and the most important part of the society. If the government don't give that necessary attention to it, then our society will collapse. I would say collapse. Because if you look at the way things are going, the skill acquisition, we have the three basic forms of education: the formal education, the non-formal, and the informal education. And if you look, the formal education anchors the rest of them, the skill acquisition and all of those. So a society that is not giving priority to education, that society cannot develop.
All right, let's look at the Nigerian's educational system, and it's based on the 6-3-3-4 pattern now, the approach now. Is there anything wrong with that?
Well, if you look at the 6-3-3 pattern, I think presently personally, I think there's need for adjustments.
Okay.
Yes, there's need for us to overhaul the curriculum, and make new policies. I know there's a policy that was enacted not too quite long, but the applicability of it and the usability of it has to be looked into as well. The 6-3-3, the system might just be there. I don't think, especially like there's no use staying too long in the system if the system is not productive. It's of no use. So, but we can compress the system such that, the educational the system, the 6-3-3 system that we're talking about, such that it can be more productive. Like, for instance, if you review the curriculum, to meet the present challenges, I think it's one of the very important things that will be done, that I think will be of advantage to the educational system in Nigeria. Okay, let me buttress on that. If you look at the curriculum, it is actually wired theoretically instead of practically. So you discover that people go to school, they learn the theoretical aspect of it, but the practical, the research aspect of it is not given into, it's not the core things that people go to. So you see, at the end of the day, we just go to obtain certificates.
All right.
Yes.
Well, let's look at some of the challenges. Well, on the screen there we have the education in Nigeria, and of course some facts are being put on the screen there. For some reasons, infrastructural decay, like you mentioned, as a part of the challenge that we have in our system. Here we have a high tuition fee. We have a lot of them. But let's look at from the angle of the social development. You mentioned some of those challenges from the social development now. For social development, we know skill, values, and everything will also be part of that. Personality development in our country when it comes to education, how far have we gone? Personality.
Okay, development. Yes. If the educational system is structured and is productive, like I said earlier on, and people see the need for it, they want to equip themselves. That by the time you want to equip yourself, either by skill or by any other way of equipping yourself, you discover that it translates into individual self-development and personality development. So at the end of the day, you don't see people who don't qualify for a particular position or jobs going into those places. Now we'll have value for professionalism, we'll have value for skill acquisition, and I'm sure if you want to get someone into this studio, you want the best hands and people who have had the experience. But if by the end of the day you get someone who doesn't, the productivity level is going to drop. I'm just using that as an analogy. So if people see the value to equip themselves, to develop themselves, and they see that, okay, I haven't equipped myself, developed myself, I'm going to be useful to the society. I'm going to be productive to myself and to my entire, family and community. You see, it's going to go a long way to help, people equipping themselves and become better people within the society. And if we have better people in leadership, imagine what it's going to translate to. So it's very important that we pay attention to that aspect.
Well, major players in educational sector are the private, stakeholders now,
Yes, exactly.
and of course government
Yes.
is also part of the key players right there. We've seen schools, private schools, public schools. In fact, as we speak right now, most parents prefer to take their children to private school.
Yeah.
Apart from Governor El Rufai, probably still in the book. I don't know yet. That has a son in a public school. We've not seen any of their leads, probably even those holding political offices, take their children to public school.
Yes.
What do you think we can do to probably solve those challenges that the public school is facing, and of course make sure that we have a better standard for both private and public schools?
Yes, this is actually a complex issue, because recently it was actually, I think, deliberated in at the National Assembly, and so many people actually kicked against it. Although it's your right as an individual to have your children schooled in any part of the world, and it could also be a plus to the country if the systems are working for, how do you call it, children to school in the best of schools. But we can also make our schools the best of schools. That's just the irony of it. So if everyone can stay and make sure the systems work, but unfortunately, most of the private schools that we're talking about are owned by some of these political elites. So they want patronage, they want, because of the desire for patronage, they are now undermining or maybe not taking into cognizance the public schools. And that is where the government, state government with the political will can come in now. And okay, let's improve the schools, the infrastructure, and so that it will be convenient, at least the level of basic comfort for for students to go to those places. But unfortunately, the private sector has actually taken, you go every nook and cranny, you see private schools everywhere. And sometimes it baffles me if they are actually gone through the accreditation process. For those of us in the private sector, and I haven't consulted for so many schools, you see schools and you'll be wondering, are these schools? So, but then their role is still very important because they create the balance. Why the public school and in some countries the public schools are even much more posh and better than the private school, which is what we are actually looking for in this country. If we can upgrade our public schools, the private now will look up to the public school. But the situation right now is that the private school is rather looking out. If you look at their curriculums and everything they use is adopted from outside. We use the British, we use the American curriculum, we use teaching methodologies that some of them are not even applicable here. So it's like we grooming our children or our students for outside instead of to meet the basic challenges within our
what's the implication of this you just mentioned now, grooming your children for outside world, which might not be definitely applicable to what we have in our society? What is the implication?
The implication is that you see, suddenly we start having brain drain, because if they see that what they have there is better than what we have here, the desire is for a lot of, which is happening. A lot of people want to leave the country. A lot of good brains, a lot of people who have, the intelligence to actually make things work here would rather want to go out. That's one of the implications. And then it looks as if our system here is inferior. Whereas if you look at it critically, if we like China, they decided to stay back and harness, the human resource, So if we can actually restructure the curriculum such that it is practical oriented, such that, we can have our people see the reward of those educational strategy we are putting in, those policies, those curriculum, if they can see the reward after leaving school, and that they can put those into practice within the environment, you see, they will stay. But if there is no hope, if there's no guarantee, and you look, okay, I haven't done this, I won't fit into the society, I won't be employable, I won't even be employed except I have a connection somewhere. You see, people would rather give their attention to what works out there. And that's what is actually happening.
Well, a lot of people have said this, and I want to probably ask you now your opinion about it. The federal government put a ban. They actually closed the border for the import of rice and some other commodities now. And of course, it yielded a positive result. Even in our agricultural sector, we see that we're producing rice and, of course, exporting effectively.
Yes.
Can we do that to education? Probably close borders. Everyone should be in the house here, and let's solve this challenge together. Is it possible?
Oh, well, I don't.
And how do we make it possible?
I don't think that will be possible if you look at it critically. You know, education is not just like a commodity you purchase. You know, you can actually have other options. For instance, like the agriculture we're talking about. If you look at the telecoms, you see they allow that competition, and then the telecom industry thrived. Then when it comes to agriculture, they shut down the borders, and then you see. So you see, they are all different.
You mentioned China too.
Yes,
China uses similar approach.
Yes, they use similar approach. So if we have the political will, sincerely, if our leaders say, okay, let's make these things work. But then it must not necessarily be by closing all the borders. If we see the kind of leader that will actually look at a particular strategy, like we said, the budget allocation to, and then monitoring, supervision, and then seeing their education, the facilities, the teachers are being trained, you know, upgraded. The remuneration is enticing. If you can have all of that, trust me, we don't need to close the border. You rather see that, okay, people, instead of me spending so much on exchange rate, you know, to go out and spend that huge money, if I see what we have in here, it's actually competitive enough, you see a lot of people staying back. So that's
all right. We're due for a break. When we return from this break, we'll be looking at the educational management aspect, and of course how it's going to affect and how it should affect our educational system in Nigeria. Still Straight Talk right here on Bright Television, the home of talk and entertainment. We'll be back after this break. Do stay with us. All right, thank you so much for joining us. Still Straight Talk right here on Bright Television, the home of talk and entertainment. Ayobami Ademo is my name, and I still have my guest in the studio with me. He's a lead consultant and, of course, an expert in educational system in Nigeria. Talking about Aaron Ikpe. Thank you so much for joining us on the program. Well, education is equipping of knowledge, skills, values, beliefs, habits, and, of course, attitudes with learning experiences, and educational management is critical if we want to get this right. Human and the material resources must be put together to plan effectively and, of course, get things right. Let's talk about what we have right now. We for example, in the dailies today, the federal government is saying that they are working on weakening the power of ASU.
Okay.
At least they want to see how they can put some policies together to probably weaken the structure of ASU in such a way that the federal government or government will be able to, contribute effectively and, of course, have a strength in controlling the system. What does that mean to educational management? What does that mean to Nigeria now?
Yes. If we're looking at it from that perspective, for me, it's just... maybe it's the way they present it, but personally, I think it's fun in the sense that you don't have to weaken ASU to make the educational system strong. Because if you look at it critically, the demands they are putting on ground is to actually help the system work. But then if you have a better option, and then you think that would actually put ASU demands aside, then you present it, for them to look, or the statutory agencies to actually look. Let it not look. It's looking as if ASU is now like refusing to do their work, as you know. But then I don't think so. Personally, I feel if the government is actually, up and responsible for a vibrant educational system, there won't be all of this agitation. So if you want to weaken them, how do you want to weaken them? The term should be, let's look for an alternative. Let's collaborate. Let all the statutory agency and parastatals, both the private and the public, come together. let's see what's the way forward, instead of us holding the student or them ransom to do what they actually have to do. You know, so that's on a larger scale for educational management from the public or private public sector.
But let's look at it from your own, because you're a consultant and a lead consultant. What is educational management?
Okay.
Let's just explain to a common man out there.
Yes, education management is broad, and then has to do with all that there is to make educational system work. Let's say both public and private. Now, for the private system, haven't gotten all the policy and all of that needed for a school to be established. There's a need for them to be supervised. Constant supervised by the supervision by the monitoring agency within the government, you know, routine check. And then there's also the need for what we call training and retraining of teachers, even within the private sector, which is what I do most of the time. You know, restructuring their system of delivery, strategies of educational delivery, and then what you call guidance, counseling, and all of those are the way forward to managing education in the private sector. And then the pedagogy, teaching pedagogy, the strategy, the objectives of learning, those things will actually build teachers' confidence and educators' confidence. So if all of this constant training, in fact, I've realized that most schools that give priority to educational management or the management of their teachers, training and retraining of their teachers, perform better than those schools who take all of those things for granted. And then aside of training and retraining, we have the administrative aspect of the school, of private schools, from the head of schools to principals and all of that.
So teachers and non-teaching staff.
Yes, teaching and non-teaching staff. You know, so most times when we're talking of education, we talk of the teachers, but nobody's talking of the non-teaching staff. So the entirety of the environment and the staff working within the system have to be trained. Work ethics. You talk of teaching outcomes, how to achieve learning outcomes. You talk of how to set your objectives, you know, how to set, plan your lessons, you know, and then you consistently review your curriculum and extracurricular activities, you know. But what most schools do is that they just copy and paste. For instance, we have the British, we have American, we have some running integrated curriculum where you have both of them and Nigeria fused together. Then with time, you have to review. Take a look at them and see which to expunge, which to include, and which to remove. You know, not just having it there for, you know, for decorations. And then if some of these things are properly put in place, you see the students will actually perform well. You know, instead of some schools now who just rely on, you know, just they just want to pass, for instance, WAEC, you know, through the wrong means. But if all of this check and balance and things are done properly, students and parents don't need to be agitated to the point of going through the back doors to, you know, for to get their results. So
it's critical. It's very important. Well, we're looking at, you've mentioned, we've talked about political edge, we've talked about, you know, the principals, the teaching staff and non-teaching staff, and you've talked about, you know, trying to see how we can keep, you know, training them. For some reasons, lately we've been hearing, and of course, it's been all over the news, different social vices in our instruction schools now. For the young chaps, the teens now, you see that they're involved in rituals. They're involved in, you know, a lot of cases. You remember the Chrisland case too, and it's worrisome. It seems as if we're not getting it right.
It's worrisome.
Why is it so?
Well, it's worrisome, and it's unfortunate that we're experiencing some of these things which can be avoided. Although you can't take societal issues out sometimes, you know, even in advanced countries, you have school shootout and all of those. But then But when it comes to moral decadence, which is what the school also is part of a system that should uphold, and then all of those issues becomes worrisome. Now, what is actually happening in our schools these days is that you see a lot of schools, especially the private school, trying to impress parents. They just want to impress them. And the kids, from psychological point of view, the kids are seeing you. They see what you're telling the parents doesn't tell you what you're telling them. They see your body language, and because some of these schools want to retain customership and then make the money, they water down what they need to do, the disciplinary aspect, which is what is actually diminishing within the system now. You see, so many schools, we don't flog, we don't beat, we don't do this, and then, they compromise in taking stands when it comes to disciplinary issues. So these are some of the areas that we really, really, really need to look at. If the disciplinary issue, I'm not saying a child should be flogged, but we can bring things like guidance and counseling, proper guidance and counseling.
Well, while talking about disciplinary issues, it popped into my head, this naughty corner thing, has it been working at all? Because kids, while growing up, we never had the naughty corner.
We never had naughty corner.
We had spanking, we had knocking.
Knocking, pulling of ears, and all of that. Naughty corner does, for me personally, I would say, is just for fun for kids now. If you've been in the classroom setting, a child would, after all, they're going to put me in the naughty corner. And trust me, kids who are actually looking for attention, who want your attention, will actually do something for you to put them there, because like an isolation spot. And so every child, every teacher, everybody's looking, you're there. And for kids who crave for attention, they don't mind that kind of negative attention. So naughty corner, for me, it's not even the best option. Let the kids be sent to the guardian and counseling office and let them actually try to talk them to understand the implication of their behavior. And then the rules and regulation within the classroom setting should be clear and be made possibly with the teachers and the students, such that they can all be part of the rules. Sometimes we just make the rules and want to impose both on parents and all of that. So naughty corner for me, it's not working. It could deny a child of something very important
and critical
at a particular time. Just to catch his attention, to tell him exactly what is right to be done. So we have to now evolve our disciplinary strategy to the way the system is, such that it will be effective.
Well, great key players includes the parents too in terms of education.
Exactly.
And most times I've spoken to some, proprietors, some teachers, and non-teaching staffs too. And one of the things they mention is that the parents are also part of those people that help to spoil this system. You see, a school probably, cautions or discipline a child, and the parents rush to the school to cause a drama, a scene, and of course the child is also observant, so watching and saying, okay, so if my teacher touches me again, I'm going to tell my dad, I'll tell my mom. So how do we actually address this critically? I want you to talk about that, then we'll move straight to some other issues.
Okay, yes, sincerely, that's a very big issue within the educational system. I don't know why parents would not, give the school that total, if you put your child in school, give them that have that confidence in school that they are going to do the right thing. You discover, like you rightly say, a child is disciplined, or you see something from a child, and then the parent is coming, why would you do this to my child? Don't you discipline your child at home? So parents are also part of the problem. I think parents should slow down a bit and then allow, like most of the spank, the pulling of ears, the knocking, and all of those things, we are here today and nothing actually is wrong with us. And we are a bit conservative and more, respectful and cultured. So if those things are things that will kill people, I'm not sure a lot of us wouldn't be alive today.
Definitely.
So parents should be patient, and allow the teachers and the school administrators to do their work.
All right. Well, a lot of debate here and there concerning gadgets and smarts. They call them smart kids now, and a lot of gadgets parents do buy for them to just equip them effectively. For some reasons, it's the intention education is actually good, of course, to be part of the global space, do your research, if effective, and so on and so forth. But hey, it seems as if it's not adding up at all, because they're taking the negative part of it effectively. What do you want to say about that?
I think, the gadgets provided our kids these days, we don't blame them, because if you look, times have changed. Times have changed. Where you have volume of now. EdTech. You have volume of books. You want to flip pages upon pages. Those days are gone, where just with a fingertip you can actually, So I think the best thing is for to look at the kids and see what. Sometimes we overload them with information. A child should get to a particular level to have access to particular information. So it's not civilization. There's no competition per se with anybody out there to give your child all the information in the world. And that's why we have structured learning from one point to another, like that, and the progression goes. So if a child is not up to 18, or is even up to 18, you know that this child shouldn't be exposed to certain information. Why don't you give them materials within the smartphone that is just, okay for their use, instead of giving them the whole World Wide Web, the internet, for them to explore at their own discretion. So I feel you can give them smartphone, but it should be regulated at a particular age when they know the importance and the use. Because these days virtually everything is online. Things keep popping up, things you don't even want, adverts, and so many things. So it will be a huge distraction for me, for my kids to have all of that. So why don't you have a system where the files I need the child to go through, the pictures I want the child to go through, like personally, I download specific information, videos, and for my kids. Specifically, I don't even let them watch the general TV anymore. So I get that in the flash, and then I put them for them to watch.
Just to guide, and of course, well, nepotism in admission has been part of the talking point. It's a big challenge, and a lot of people are talking about that. Want to say something about that?
Yes, it has actually caused a lot of setback. You see a lot of people from different parts of the country, not gaining admission.
Especially in tertiary institutions.
Yes, tertiary institution. In short, at the point, I think after JAM, there was post-UME, which, I could say sentiments, nepotism, and all of that influenced the admission of a lot of people who even did well in their JAM but never got admission. So you discover that all of those things, I don't know why in this part of the world we are so inclined to, is it religious and ethnic sentiments, and not merit. But until we agree that merit is what will push our system forward, then especially it's so unfortunate that the educational system or sector that should know this better has compromised in some way in doing that. So I think they should actually review some of these things to see that admission is based on merit.
Well, as we wind down, cultism is also one of those critical issues, especially not only in tertiary institutions. We have even in primary school.
In primaries now, yes.
In primary school. What happened? How did we get here?
It's really a big problem and really challenging. I think parenting these days it's quite difficult, and then it actually requires parents to actually put in so much, to parenting. Because if you look at it, because of maybe the economic situation and everything is running so fast, parents want to provide the best for the kids, and then somehow they get to neglect some things they need to, look out, And then parents also in their way of behaving, in their social inclination and all of those things, in the manifesting, the way they manifest their ego and all of that, could also make the kids want to copy, because we are all social beings. So if for kids or the issue of cultism, it's something that there should be stringent laws in place to tackle that. And one of the challenges we are seeing these days, subtly or somehow, is that we don't see deterrent. We don't see people who are, okay, this person was a cultist, and because he was apprehended, this is the consequence. You know, once those news fly, they just fly down, and then we forget about them. We need to see, this is the end of this person that was into this kind of act. In the primary school, those, you know, sometimes they even start as just a group, not knowing that it's going to end up that way. So the need for close supervision, monitoring, especially for students with non-tertiary institutions, supervision, monitoring, and then review, and then, you know, follow up. All of this would help to checkmate some of these things within the school system.
Well, it's time for us to go, but before we go, I just want to ask you this question. We've seen likes of Professor Jibril Aminu, of course, Professor Fafunwa, and amongst others, you know, Babatunde Fafunwa, I remember him now, that was in 1990s then. And of course, we've seen a lot of people, you know, there about that being part of, you know, getting things right in this sector. A lot of people have said probably didn't get it right in appointing a capable person or capable people as ministers, commissioner of education in different capacities now. Will you say we've gotten it right? Well, we have Malam Adamu,
yes.
And then of course Emeka, Dr. Emeka. So have we gotten it right? And if we have, why do we still have those challenges? If we don't, what are we waiting for?
I think there's the need to review the whole system, if you ask me, holistically by professionals who are actually sincere. And then it also takes the political will of our leaders and leadership to see that some adjustments are made. Because if I'm appointing you as a minister, you know what the system, the political system is like. You are totally accountable to me, the budgets, the allocation, the monies, and all of that. If we actually create a system where the person who emerges as the minister of education, we have standards and you know, criteria. Maybe you've been through the system or somehow, somewhere to emerge. You have a better picture instead of just being a figurehead, just there. And then after your tenure, you know you have, you know. But if you're there as in like a permanent sec who has grown through the ranks and all of that to that place, I think I'm just in my own thinking that it could help in a way. And then we don't just leave the appointment to just the presidency, but rather to a team of experts who should be saddled with the responsibility to bring people to make this adjustment.
All right, thank you so much, Aaron Ikpe. Thank you so much for joining us on the program. A lead consultant and, of course, educational expert. Well, adequate funding, research, and, of course, the right pegs and right holes would definitely be part of those things that would solve our challenge in this particular sector. We'll be looking at the challenges of the educational sector and way forward on the program right here today. Like we always remind you, and we keep telling you, when you play your part, we play our part, we have a better place called the Federal Republic of Nigeria. On behalf of everyone as a part of the production this morning, we say a very big thank you. My name is Ayobami Adeyemo. God bless you, and God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Goodbye.